Karen Reed's hands shaking as she wipes away tears. This is the moment that she learned she is now a free woman. She was found not guilty on all major charges in the death of her boyfriend, John O'Keefe. Her crowd of supporters erupted, fired off confetti in celebration of the verdict. The street outside of the Dedham courthouse shut down as people in pink swarmed the barricades. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm David Wade. More than 1,200 days after the death of her boyfriend, a year after her first trial ended in a hung jury, Karen Reed is acquitted on nearly all counts. So tonight, the question of how John O'Keefe died is still unanswered. But after about 22 hours of deliberation, this is what the jury decided. Murder in the second degree, not guilty. Manslaughter while under the influence, not guilty. Leaving the scene of an accident resulting in death, not guilty. But she was found guilty on a lesser charge of drunk driving, and so she was sentenced to 1 year probation. Tonight, we have live team coverage explaining what happened in the courtroom, how John O'Keefe's loved ones are reacting, and the impact of this case on a divided Canton community. We begin tonight with Christina Rex, who was in the courtroom at this climactic moment today. Christina.
David, you really can't overstate the magnitude this trial has had on this entire state and even parts of the country. We're talking about more than 3 years since the victim, John O'Keefe, died. 2 criminal trials, each of them longer than 8 weeks, more than 100 witnesses in total, all for just a 7-minute verdict read in a very emotional courtroom.
Are not guilty or guilty?
Not guilty.
Karen Reed not guilty in the death of John O'Keefe. The chants of free Karen Reed heard through the courthouse walls as Reed and her lawyers cry after hearing the verdict.
Murder in the second degree. What say you? Is the defendant at the bar guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Reed was convicted only of operating under the influence or drunk driving. Her lawyer, Alan Jackson, called this one of the best days of his life.
Freed Karen Reed! Freed Karen Reed!
Outside court, Reed celebrated the verdict, saying,
"No one has fought harder for justice for John O'Keefe than I have and my team."
The O'Keefe family does not agree. They left the courthouse privately and gathered down the street.
It was disgusting. The family heard it. It was disgusting.
John Jackson, John O'Keefe's college friend, reacted to the celebration in the streets. He spoke out after the verdict, emotional especially about O'Keefe's orphaned niece and nephew.
Life is not fair. And they learned that when their parents passed. And then Johnny passed. It's no justice. So Johnny deserved much more than this. He just deserved much more than this.
Free Karen Reed! Free Karen Reed! Free!
This is what he's describing. The 1,000 or so people in jubilation over the verdict.
I'm declaring a mistrial in this case.
Reed's first trial ended in a mistrial due to a hung jury in July 2024. In her retrial,
I'm Jennifer McCabe.
Jurors heard from 49 witnesses over 8 weeks and saw more than 200 pieces of evidence, which they had access to as they deliberated. On Wednesday, Karen Reed thanked her supporters for showing up and for donating more than $1 million to her legal fund over the course of 2 criminal trials.
Just thank you to my supporters. They've pulled us through on their backs. Thank you.
And for that drunk driving conviction, Karen Reed was already sentenced to just 1 year probation. I do want to note I've reached out several times to the district attorney's office, Michael Morrissey, for a comment, a statement, an interview, and we've heard no response. David?
Yeah, unusual not to hear from the DA after a case this big. And Christina, Reed may still see the inside of a courtroom again because there's a civil case against her.
There is. The O'Keefe family actually filed a civil case last summer after the first trial ended. It's seeking a little more than $50,000, and it's against Karen Reed and the 2 bars that served her alcohol that night. So as you may know, a civil case, it's not criminal. The legal standard is a lot lower. You think of some famous trials like O.J. Simpson was found not guilty criminally, but then he was found liable civilly. So Karen Reed will have to face another trial, this time a civil trial against the O'Keefe family. We don't know yet when the next court date will be in that case.
Christina Rex in Dedham, great job throughout this trial. Thank you, Christina. And tonight we are hearing from key witnesses in the case, including the Alberts and the McCabe's, who testified against Reed. They say in part, today we mourn with John's family and lament the cruel reality that this prosecution was infected by lies and conspiracy theories spread by Karen Reed, her defense team, and some in the media. The result, they say, is a devastating miscarriage of justice. But Reed supporters say this is justice. And we met people today who traveled from hundreds of miles away to stand outside that courthouse and wait for the verdict. Tammy Mutasa joins us now. And Tammy, this was truly a trial unlike anything we've ever seen before.
David, it really has. And this has been such a roller coaster of emotions for both sides. But today it was elation and huge relief for thousands of Karen Reed supporters, some of whom are now calling for accountability in John O'Keefe's death.
It's the moment they've all been waiting for. Karen Reed's faithful supporters erupting into thunderous cheering, some moved to tears after hearing the words "not guilty of second-degree murder" in the death of her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe.
I'm so happy. A little overwhelmed, but we're happy.
So only guilty of operating under the influence. What do you think of that?
I think that she's freed of the most important charges, and we love her and we support her, and really happy that this was their verdict.
By the time Karen Reed walked out of the Norfolk County Superior Court a free woman, confetti was flying, and the American Sign Language sign for "I love you" was in the air too.
I am feeling like overwhelmed. I'm so happy. She deserves this. Karen Reed is free.
Hundreds of eyes were glued to the courthouse day in and out. State police shut down High Street, allowing the crowd to move closer to the courthouse with barricades up. 2 trials and nearly 3 years later, they celebrate a hard-fought fight.
Relief. Just relief. 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 It's been a long fight. I want her to get her life back, and I want them to get the real killers for John. I'm just happy it's over for her.
But for some, their hearts were with John O'Keefe too, who lost his life, and say the work must continue for him as well.
This is still not justice for John, because what happened to him still has not been taken care of. This is justice for Karen. John still needs justice.
Now, some people were here almost every day for both trials, spending so much of their personal life here showing their support for Karen Reed. So they're glad that this is finally over, as are the neighbors in this community who are glad that these crowds won't be taking over their neighborhood anymore. Live in Dedham, Tammy Mutasa, WBZ News.
All right, Tammy, thank you. So this jury eventually came to a consensus when the first jury could not. Our legal analyst, Catherine Loftus, says that's probably because the defense focused on poking holes in the investigation this time around, instead of trying to convince the jury that Reed was framed.
I think the more persuasive argument to a jury is to say, you know, you have a legal responsibility to hold the Commonwealth to their burden. And you might think she's guilty, or you might be swaying that way, but look at all these things that I think make it that you can't find beyond a reasonable doubt. And so you must find her not guilty, which I think is a much more persuasive argument than trying to convince the jury that, you know, this entire different theory happened with all of these sort of co-conspirators.
This has been a long journey for Reed, the O'Keefe family, and really the community of Canton. A small town suddenly found itself in the spotlight of a national true crime obsession. Brandon Truitt is live for us tonight in Canton. And Brandon, any sense of closure there at all tonight?
Well, David, it's interesting. We could not find a person here who did not have an opinion on this case, and a strong one at that. But the common thread we found was a desire to move forward.
I'm ready for it to be over.
The town of Canton is known for its tree-lined streets, charming storefronts, and a house on Fairview Road. But it's what happened at this property that thrust the town of 25,000 into the national spotlight.
From the second I moved here, people were asking me about the Karen Reed case.
We get both sides, people that were related to both sides of the story.
and people are very aggressive about it.
This town turned into a destination of sorts. The restaurants and bars mentioned in the case like set pieces in this made-for-TV trial.
It's been crazy. People are like coming in on like little tours or mini like buses or thinking it's a party. I feel bad for the family because they're making a mockery. You drive by the house, people are driving by, people are going to McCarthy's, they're going to Waterfall. It's like become this big joke.
It's an embarrassment the way that you conducted this meeting.
The trial splitting this community. Town meetings grew heated over the years, and people who live here voted to audit their own police department. Moments after the verdict, town leaders releasing this statement, writing today's outcome may bring a sense of relief to some and continue to raise questions for others. We encourage members of the community to move forward together, treating one another with respect through civil, constructive dialogue.
Some people I know followed the trial pretty closely. I tried not to.
I still think Canton's a great town.
People here tell me the divisions from this case run deep, with a real focus on starting a new chapter.
I think we just want to put it past us. Again, it was a tragic situation for everyone involved, especially John O'Keefe, and I think we're just ready to move on.
That audit that was done into the police department, it was completed earlier this year, and it found serious issues with the department's handling of the investigation into John O'Keefe's death, but it found no evidence of corruption or conspiracy. Live in Canton, Brandon Truitt, WBZ News.
All right, Brandon, thank you. Well, tonight we